Support for WUWM podcasts comes from University School of Milwaukee, fulfilling a values-based mission of developing learners, fostering leaders, and preparing citizens for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. More information at usm.org/mission.
From 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Excaret Nunez. Today we'll learn how Milwaukee's network of emergency shelters are responding during the extreme cold. Then we'll learn about the coyotes you see around the city and how we can coexist with them.
You don't have to worry about coyotes. Typically what we tell people is if you see a coyote, from a safe distance, observe that coyote, watch it.
Plus, we'll meet Milwaukee Recreation's new director.
One of the things that I'm pretty passionate about is providing a seat at the table, making sure that we are involving members of that community in the decision making so that we know that we're offering what people actually want to participate in.
All that's coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Excaret Nunez. Thanks for joining us today. It's been dangerously cold in the Milwaukee area. It started with the frigid temperatures last weekend, and the lows lasted all week. The extreme weather puts pressure on emergency services, including at Cathedral Center in downtown Milwaukee. It runs a shelter that serves women and families. To find out how the center and other shelters met demand during this frigid cold, WUWM's Susan Bentz spoke with communications manager Evan Barbian.
We came into this super cold weekend already at capacity, so we can serve up to 28 women and 8 families per night. And we were, going into the weekend already full. But we did set up a few extra emergency beds for people that did maybe swing by after hours or on the weekend, and they just needed somewhere warm to be. So it has been a busy weekend, not just for us, but for the city as a whole and system providers everywhere.
So have you then referred women and families? Have there been places they can go?
Yeah, so Milwaukee's super fortunate in that we have a well-connected system of providers. There's about over 200 warming beds that are available and some additional beds that are being made available as the weather gets to extreme levels. Like I was saying, we added a couple extra warming beds. So I know other shelters are trying to do that too. If one shelter's full, we can refer to other shelters or warming rooms that might have the capacity.
So is your sense that the people who are out there looking for assistance were able to find it? I know you can't speak for the system, but...
Yeah. So I think people have, when they needed to, they were able to find the resources. The system of providers is able to be flexible, especially on weekends like this when it is so cold. I will be honest, the capacity is pretty limited, and it was limited going into it. The resources that warming shelters receive, they can only stretch so far. So our message right now is stay where you are if it's safe to do so, and reach out for support when it's not safe to stay where you are. Extreme weather is nothing to minimize, and we understand the dangers of it. So safety is number one priority, and we'll find those resources through the system that we have.
So the reaching out, is that a system that people who find themselves in need or in danger, are those pathways clear, do you think, to people?
I think so. 211 has always been a staple in trying to direct resources and direct people to certain resources. So I know that you can still call 211 if you need to be connected to housing or shelter resources, and they should have a list of the current warming shelters and availabilities as well. And then also all the current providers and shelters also know that and can help. We kind of have a script that we're working from when things are so crazy busy and things pop up or things are at capacity. So the shelters themselves really try to walk people through that process and that journey. Have you contacted these resources? Where are you at on that process? And then let's help you get to somewhere safe if you aren't somewhere safe right now.
Folks who could use a helping hand, are their needs more extreme in this extreme weather?
Yes, the needs do rise, especially with these types of dangerous temperatures. Gloves, hats, mittens, face masks, those gaiters, at least we've tried to keep on hand. Anything that limits the exposure of skin when we're sitting in the negatives pretty much all day. Coats for sure are always one, like bigger coats that allow people to layer up underneath. Any type of thermal wear and that protective gear to limit skin exposure around now is super important.
So you said coming into this frigid weather, Cathedral Center was already close to capacity. Is that the norm at the center?
hmm Yeah, so recently, especially since last August, we took on some water during those crazy rains, and we kind of had to pause intakes where we were at because we had to be out of the building while we did repairs. But since we've come back from that in September, we've been pretty much at capacity between our individual beds for single women and then also our family rooms. So yeah, that is has been something that's been pretty common since late last year.
Do you find donations and offers for volunteering pour in this kind of situation now with this extreme cold, or do you have a consistent level of contributions to keep you going?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate in receiving support of food is a big one down this stretch, winter gear and supplies all year round. We have a lot of partnerships in the community, whether it's community groups or individuals that just consistently always ask, what do you need? And in particular, like you said, when we experience extreme weather like this, extra coats and extra winter gear and extra food if people are swinging by. They might not be in our services, but if we can offer them a snack bag or a lunch and something to drink and just a quick respite out of the cold, that's always welcome. So of course we're welcome support at any level. In particular, the operating costs of a shelter. So we see heating costs rise. And just our building and operations costs go up as we use more resources to make sure that our clients are comfortable and in a safe environment. So transportation costs go up too. We try to get ride shares, like we call ride shares. If the bus lines aren't on time for a client to get to an appointment, we'll call a ride share because we don't want them waiting out in the cold for that long, waiting for maybe some public transportation. So transportation costs go up as well.
So you're generally pretty close to capacity no matter what's going on with our weather or otherwise. Do you find that the economy is factoring in also to people turning to you for help?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, short answer is yes. But to look into the system and us as an individual agency, we're finding more and more, especially families with children, reaching out, seeking assistance to either get or maintain their safe housing, purchase food, and really meet many of their basic necessities and needs. And that's because health insurance costs might be on the rise, just the general cost of living between food, as I think we can all kind of feel as a general sense, and energy. What I was talking about, the same way that we're affected by operating our shelter and some of those costs going up with energy costs are the same things that families in the community are feeling with their own places. So yeah, it's all of those and more all contribute to difficulty in making dollars work month to month or stretch a little bit further. So we try our best to understand and meet those needs through our different programs and really set up with clients as we're finding them safe housing, a solid plan, talking through budgeting and talking through how we can make certain dollars stretch as far as possible and what resources they can obtain, because it doesn't end at Cathedral Center. In this system, there are other resources that the city and that the county are offering up, and we're trying to get clients connected with those resources before an emergency happens in housing.
So any final thoughts, Evan, on this cold morning?
I think it's really sharing thanks. We're so lucky to be part of a system. Milwaukee is unique in the fact that we have so many agencies and then so many individuals, either within or outside of those agencies. They truly want to see their community be safe during times like this and year round. Like it doesn't just stop here. So I want to thank everyone that is involved in the system to ensure that people that are going through housing crises know that there are resources and know that there's community support behind this all. And I encourage people to continue or seek out some of those opportunities moving forward. Because as I said, it doesn't stop here. There are year-round needs, and we always love to see community members find their passions in helping other community members stabilize situations.
Evan Barbian is the Development and Communications Manager at Cathedral Center in downtown Milwaukee. He spoke with WUWM's Susan Bentz. WUWM is examining systemic housing problems and solutions for more affordable housing. This is all for our series, Keys to Homeownership. When it comes to the housing challenges in Milwaukee, a lot of it comes down to cost. People may want to buy, but just can't afford to. Today, we're looking into community organizations that are creating their own paths to homeownership and hearing from Milwaukeeans who have been waiting their whole lives for a home of their own. WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez has the story.
To kick off 2026, Melody McCurtis and the Metcalf Park Community Bridges team in Milwaukee had a surprise to share with Shirley Dunn.
You know, that house you've been checking on for us, making sure ain't no dumping happening and all that on 33rd.
I'm here to tell you the house is yours.
And that is Shirley, longtime Metcalf Park resident and longtime renter. She had just won the neighborhood's lease-to-own lottery.
This house will be completely yours in 15 years.
The Reclaim and Restore initiative works like this. Community Bridges buys a home from the city for cheap. They rehab and remodel it from the studs with local contractors. And they keep it all incredibly affordable.
The house is $105,000. I'm around it. It's $901 a month. $901.
Last week, she and her family walked through the house together, and you could not wipe the smiles off their faces.
No, that's a den.
Going room to room, planning their future.
This the living room. But I'm saying the area,
We're going to put some bar stools up there. Some bar stools right there.
Tyrone Dunn is Shirley's husband. Both are lifelong renters.
Plus, I've been around here ever since I've been 19. My mother stayed in the house for 33 years on 33rd between Center and Hatley. So I know how it is when you renting, and you just not getting nowhere. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it feel good, and it's a blessing.
In Metcalf Park, less than 30% of the homes are owner-occupied. Rent averages around $1,300 in the neighborhood. So trying to save for a down payment and then a mortgage, you'd be better off winning the lottery.
If Shirley was staying in that home for 20 years, if we add up how much rent is going into that home, you have the ability to own. Let's reclaim these homes. Let's reclaim our neighborhood. Let's really invest in the people that make it what it is.
One of the reasons why programs like Reclaim and Restore are needed is because it's not easy to reclaim neighborhoods.
We often talk about supply and demand, and don't get me wrong, there is a lack of supply and there's a lack of buying power from tenants. But there's also a power imbalance that's intertwined with those issues.
This is Kevin Solomon from Common Ground in Milwaukee. He's been working for years with tenants fighting the imbalance. He says corporate landlords are a big part of the problem.
Landlords are organized, have a trade association, have a super PAC, have a hired lobbyist, have agenda items in Madison that they
In 2016, renters in Milwaukee numbered around 42%. That number today is over 60%. Almost 20% increase in a decade. And we have more out-of-state landlords than ever before, which equals less housing stock for residents, which is also less affordable.
It's hard to compete against these big corporate landlords because they have money, resources, attorneys, and can quickly jump on and gobble up the market. New properties come up, boom, they're purchased.
Metcalf Park is working hard just to buy one at a time. Competing with that speed and scale just isn't possible. But it doesn't stop them from trying.
I'm a DJ, so,
Back on North 33rd Street, Tyrone and Shirley Dunn are standing in a back bedroom of their new home, planning.
Woman cave. I'm going to have a woman cave. My computer. I run bingo games. Hey, we're going to be playing bingo.
I'm a shopaholic. So one bedroom going to be with all my clothes in it. So
Yeah. They are filled up.
Metcalf's Reclaim and Restore shows a different path to homeownership, one that's affordable, keeps people in the neighborhoods they've long lived in, even if it takes winning a lottery to make it happen.
If they need a place to stay, hey, they can always come here.
How do you feel about this view from your porch?
Oh my God. Hey neighbors. I love it.
That story was produced by WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez. It's part of our series, Seeking Solutions, Keys to Home Ownership. Support for the series comes from presenting sponsor, Educators Credit Union. You can find all of our coverage at wuwm.com/housing. In about 15 minutes, we'll meet the new director of Milwaukee Rec. But first, we'll tell you why you might be noticing more coyotes around the city and what to do if you see one. That's coming up on Lake Effect on WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. You're listening to Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Excret Nunez. You may have seen more coyotes roaming the streets of Milwaukee, but they aren't new neighbors. Coyotes are native to Wisconsin and have adapted to urban living. Their activity increases between now through March. And while coyotes don't pose much of a threat to humans, it's advised to keep an eye on your pets. To learn more, WUWM's Eric Vaughn Fellow Maria Peralta Ariano is joined by UW-Madison wildlife specialist David Drake.
I think it's fitting to start at the population. What numbers are we currently looking at? Are they shrinking? Are they growing? Just what trends are also following the coyotes?
Yeah, so the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources is the management authority. They have the regulatory authority over coyotes because coyotes are considered a state species, not necessarily a migratory species. And so because they are, confined within the boundaries of our state, then our Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, or the DNR, has management authority over that. And the DNR does not keep track of the number of coyotes. So we don't know exactly how many coyotes are in the state, and we don't really even have a population estimate with confidence intervals to suggest how many coyotes are in the state. However, it is thought that the coyote population is very healthy in terms of numbers, because there is a regulated coyote season where people can trap and or hunt coyotes during a portion of the year. But Wisconsin is one of, I think, 39 states in the country that have an open season on coyotes. So if you are a landowner or you're renting land, anytime you see a coyote on your property, as long as it's legal for you to discharge a firearm or to discharge a bow and arrow, for example, you can kill that coyote any time of the year. Typically, that happens out in the rural areas. You could not necessarily do that in the city, for example, because it's not legal to discharge a firearm or a bow and arrow. But the fact that we've got an open season in coyotes would suggest that the numbers of coyotes are healthy, and that harvest that's coming out of the coyote population is sustainable.
So still sticking with the population of coyotes, how is climate change affecting them, if at all? And I mean that more in terms of how they're finding shelter or food, pretty much surviving and dealing with the changes that we're also dealing with.
Yeah, so I would suggest that climate change is probably not having an effect on them at all. And the reason for that is they have experienced a continental wide range expansion. So we just talked briefly about the fact that historically they were in the southwestern part of the United States, down through the Yucatan Peninsula into, kind of northern Mexico. They are now across the entire United States and across the entire southern half of Canada. And that has occurred for a number of reasons. It's occurred because these animals are extremely adaptable. They're extremely flexible in their behavioral patterns, in their ecology. So in terms of what they eat, the types of habitats that they can inhabit. And to some extent, that range expansion has occurred because of the decrease in wolves, which are a natural predator of coyotes. And so as the wolf population has decreased, especially across the top of the United States and through Canada, that's allowed coyotes to move into areas free of predation. So it's unlikely that climate change would affect them because they're such an adaptable species. And if anything, it's going to probably allow them to push even further north in their range.
Are you able to point to a few examples of that adaptability that has allowed them to expand that
Sure.
much?
So probably the best example is the fact that they have inhabited or colonized where they've moved into new areas, into urban areas. And there probably is not a city in the United States and Canada, especially southern Canada, where coyotes are either not permanently inhabiting that urban area and or are on the outskirts of the urban area, getting set to move in. So that range expansion has occurred from west to east. So the western cities, midwestern cities, we've had coyotes in cities, for decades. On the east coast of the United States and the east coast of Canada, coyotes are not throughout perhaps necessarily the entirety of a city, but they're certainly on the outskirts of the city or starting to move into the perimeter of the city. And likely over time, they're going to replicate what we see in the Midwest and the West cities, where they are inhabiting the entirety of the city. So that's a really good example of just how flexible these animals are.
Where is it more likely that you will see them, find them?
I don't have a definitive answer for you, but I'm going to hypothesize that it's most likely in urban areas, and so in cities. And the reason for that is because in cities, and this is not unique to coyotes, this is true for urban deer, urban turkeys, urban crows, urban raccoons, urban coyotes. Typically, a species that is inhabited in an urban area, they are higher in terms of density. So there's more numbers of individuals per species in an urban area than there is in a rural area. And the reason for that is that these urban areas are very rich in resources. So there's a lot of food available for them. There's a lot of water access, even in northern areas during the winter. There's a lot of, denning sites, nesting sites, things like that. And these animals don't have to move as much in terms of home range or distance in urban areas to satisfy all their needs of food, water, shelter, because you're in a much more resource-rich area in the urban area. In rural areas, we typically don't have as many coyotes per square mile, for example. And the reason for that is the resources are spread out more and they're not as rich, they're not as dense in terms of availability and abundance in rural areas as they are in urban areas. And on top of that, in urban areas, you've got a lot more people per square mile or whatever density measure you want to look at. And so you've got in a bounded, relatively small area, you've got a lot of people, relatively speaking, and you've got a lot of coyotes, relatively speaking. And so the opportunity for a coyote to be seen by somebody in the city is greater than it is in rural areas.
We should always be wary of wild animals, but is it one of those animals where you don't take your eye off of until you're safe? Or what kind of safety recommendations exist for, dealing with coyotes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. It's a very common question amongst people, especially in urban areas. So generally, you don't have to worry about coyotes. I will say that. And typically what we tell people is if you see a coyote, regardless of where you are in the landscape, if you see a coyote, from a safe distance, observe that coyote, watch it as much as you want to. If you've got kids with you, use that as a teachable moment. Maybe coyotes are in the canid family, so they're related to our domestic dogs. Maybe make some comparisons between what you see that coyote doing and what you see your domestic dog doing. And there's a lot of familiarity there simply because they are in the canid family. Especially in urban areas, we encourage people then to haze every time they see a coyote, to haze that coyote. And hazing is just simply a technique to scare the coyote. So you might just wave your arms and yell, "Hey, go away," or you might throw a rock or a stick near or in the direction of that coyote, not necessarily hit the coyote, but just to kind of scare it out of the way. Or if you see a coyote in your car, honk, something to reinstill and to maintain that fear of humans in coyotes. And as long as those coyotes are fearful of us, when they see us on the landscape, primarily in cities, they may not necessarily run away from us, but as long as they don't continue to advance on us, or if they maybe will stop and observe us, to study us, and then they might just casually walk off in a different direction. That's the proper response that we want to see from coyotes. We don't want them to advance toward us. We don't want them to be aggressive. Now, there are times when coyotes are aggressive, and if you look at Southern California, for example, in some of the urban areas there are examples where coyotes, and I'm going to say regularly, but I'm going to put my finger quotations on this, that there is some regular contact between coyotes and humans where coyotes are attacking human beings. So they might scratch them, they might chase them, and they might bite them. What's more common, and again, when I say common, I'm going to put finger quotations up because it's not like it happens every day. But occasionally coyotes will attack domestic dogs or eat domestic cats and things like that. And that typically happens this time of the year, because right now between December and March, coyotes are starting to breed. And then April to June or so, they'll start raising their pups. And during that breeding cycle and during the pup rearing cycle, they're defensive because they want to make sure they're protecting their pups and protecting their territory and their pack and things like that. So typically, coyotes will be a little bit more aggressive if people are coming in the direction of the den site or where the pups are, especially if you have a dog with you. But again, I don't want to cultivate fear in people. That it is very rare that coyotes attack dogs or cats. It's very, very rare that people are attacked. And as a matter of fact, in Wisconsin, we've not had a coyote attack on a person that I'm aware of in the history of Wisconsin.
And you had kind of gotten into this a little bit with the hazing, wanting them to still have that proper fear of being around us so they aren't overly aggressive. Say a person is having an issue. I'm a gardener, so I'm just going to use a garden as an example. Say a coyote is frequently in my garden, maybe tearing things up or causing an issue, or leaving unwanted things. What are some things that we can do to kind of coyote-proof our spaces or make them less interesting?
Yeah, well, from your specific example, I would say having a coyote around is welcoming, especially from a gardening standpoint, because coyotes, they're eating the rabbits, they're eating the chipmunks, they're eating a lot of the pest species that may be actually damaging some of the garden produce you're trying to grow. So having a coyote around it, as long as that coyote is not being aggressive or causing problems in other ways, having a coyote around is not a bad thing at all. So in addition to hazing coyotes, don't leave either intentionally or unintentionally, do not leave attractants on your property for coyotes that coyotes might find valuable to them. So for example, don't feed your pets outside and don't leave, unattended pet food outside. If you have a barbecue grill, that drip pan is very tasty and smells good to a lot of animals, not just coyotes, but raccoons and skunk and all sorts of other animals like that you might be attracting. So that's an example of an unintentional attractant where, the drip pan is not there to attract animals. It's there to catch things from your grill, but it is something the animals are going to find. So maybe do an inventory of your property and make sure, like your trash cans are secure so animals can't get into your trash cans. Make sure that you don't have some type of food source on the landscape in your yard that animals might find attractive. As I mentioned, coyotes are primarily active at nighttime. If you have a dog and coyotes are around and people are concerned about coyote aggression toward their dog, when you let your dog outside at night, even in a fenced yard, you probably want to keep an eye on that dog or make sure you have a motion sensor light that goes on that you can, make sure that the coyote they don't feel as comfortable coming into well-lit areas at nighttime. So that would prevent the coyote from being there. A lot of times people, if there's a fenced yard, people feel a security about having their dog outside, but coyotes, especially chain link fences, coyotes can clear those very, very quickly and jump over them. So, in areas, if you're walking your dog, make sure that your dog is on a leash and you have control of your dog. So if you see a coyote, you can pull your dog next to you, or we use this kind of artificial threshold of 20 pounds. If you've got a 20-pound or less dog, pick that dog up and have it, held in your arms so the coyote sees you and the dog is one. The other thing I'll quickly say is just understand what is normal for a coyote. So just because you see a coyote doesn't mean that anything bad is going to happen or will happen. It's just that animal is living in the same spaces as we are and is trying to make a living just like we are. So, educate yourself about what does normal look like for coyote behavior and understand that. And when you see something abnormal, then understand, what are the tools that you have so you can feel like you're in control of that situation.
That was David Drake, a UW-Madison professor and extension wildlife specialist. He spoke with WUWM's Eric Vaughn Fellow, Maria Peralta Ariano.
And listen while the coyotes howl. They go, woo yip, woo yip, woo. Woo yip, woo, woo, woo.
Milwaukee Public Schools recently approved Annie Kubis as the new Senior Director of Milwaukee Recreation. Milwaukee Rec runs hundreds of programs in the city, from after-school care to youth sports and cooking classes. Kubis has worked for the department since she was 16 years old, and throughout her career, she's overseen various Milwaukee Rec programs, from Special Olympics to driver education and aquatics. She was most recently working part-time as Milwaukee Rec's Special Projects Coordinator. Kubis joins me now to talk about her job experience and the goals she has for this role. So around this time last year, I was speaking with Brian Litzy, the previous Senior Director of Milwaukee Rec. How did this opportunity open up, and why did you decide to take it on?
Sure. Well, Brian was promoted to the district's Chief Family, Community, and Partnerships Officer, so that opened up the position of Senior Director. I've worked for the department in some capacity since I was 16, and I'm very passionate about the work. And so the timing was really great for my family, and I decided to take a risk and apply and hopefully come back to join the team that I care about so much and the work that I'm so passionate about.
As a refresher for our listeners, what does your job entail as the leader of Milwaukee Rec? Like, what are some of your responsibilities?
Sure. Yeah, I'm like 3 weeks in, so very much still familiarizing myself with the role, but ultimately leading the efforts of our department. We're very broad. We serve our community in a lot of capacities, and so helping with strategic planning, working in the area of efficiency, making sure that everyone has the tools that they need to be successful, but ultimately just sort of steering the ship, if you will, and making sure that our community is receiving the services that they want and need. So every day is a little bit different. Never quite know what each day will look like, which I love. So yeah, being in the community, engaging with our community members, our partners, and then engaging my team to make sure that the programming we're offering is exactly what our community wants.
So, like you mentioned, it's been about 3 weeks, a month since you started this role. How have things been going so far? How have you approached it?
Yeah, they're going really well. One of the things I missed the most when I was part-time with our department the last 7 years was just the constant access to what I call my people. And so it's been really great to be back with the folks that I've worked with for so many years. And I've been getting caught up to speed on the programs, where everything is, trying to get to know the elements that I may not necessarily know very well. I'm getting out to sites, meeting with our teams. So really listening to staff and stakeholders on how is it gone? What do you need? How can I be helpful? So I'm really in kind of a learning, listening phase right now, but ultimately wanting to position myself to be able to support everyone in the way that they need it and the way that makes the most sense for our department.
So I understand that Milwaukee Rec is something that you grew up with. Tell me how it's played a personal role in your life.
Yeah, I grew up here, graduated from Milwaukee Public Schools, so I spent time in sports camp and arts camp when I was growing up. My sisters and I were all involved in various rec classes. And then when I turned 16, I started working for a therapeutic recreation program in the summer called Club Rec and Camp Congress in the afternoons during the school year till the end of high school. So I had both the experience of participating in recreation, but then also working part-time. And then I started my full-time job with the department in 2005, managing the adaptive athletics and Special Olympics programs, and then worked full-time until 2018. And during that time, I also moved into a management role, coordinating and overseeing our citywide programs. And then my kids also participate now in various sports offerings and other classes, from tumbling teddy bears when my oldest son was 3 to now he's playing basketball with his school. So very much a part of our life, my life, and something that I really place a lot of value on.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like Milwaukee Rec has touched your life all throughout it. Is there a particular recreation class or event that's resonated with you, or have you ever led a class before?
Oh gosh, I don't think I've led a class. I did help create a sensory series of classes. That's something that we've navigated a lot with my own children. And so worked with a team at Beulah Brinton to put together a series of classes to meet the sensory needs of children. And it was something that we needed. And I figured if we needed it, other parents and families probably did as well. So being able to kind of work on that with the team there and then see it come to fruition and then see all the participants and families feel like they were seen and heard and had what they needed really resonated with me. And that was something that I appreciated the opportunity to do that.
That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm Lake Effect's Excret Nunez speaking with Annie Kubis about her taking on the role of Senior Director at Milwaukee Rec. So, as you mentioned, you worked a variety of roles at Milwaukee Rec since you were a teenager, and you also started your career as an MPS special education teacher. How would you say your professional experience has prepared you for this role?
Sure. Honestly, it didn't even occur to me when I was working part-time as a high school student and in college that recreation was a field. And I, growing up, always wanted to be a teacher, specifically in the area of special ed. So I went to school and became a special ed teacher. And there was kind of a natural progression into the adaptive athletics and Special Olympics role because I was serving the same population. So that was kind of my introduction to the rec department. And then when I moved into the role of coordinator of our citywide programs, I had a lot of exposure to a variety of program areas. So, anything from aquatics, outdoor education, active older adults, Special Olympics, driver's ed. It really gave me an opportunity to familiarize myself with a lot of different program areas. And so I think that really helped set me up for success in this role because I have a pretty good handle on what our department does, how individual programs function, who we serve, potential connections within the community. Yeah, I think that role specifically really helped to set me up for success in this role.
And I'm wondering what's something you want to improve or address at Milwaukee Rec during your first year on the job, especially since you have a lot of these personal and professional experiences.
There's a lot of amazing work that's already happening. And so I think in the first year, it's really familiarizing myself with where we have maybe some gaps in service, where the things that we're doing really, really well, maybe we can expand on those. But really building partnerships and relationships with members of our community, whether, it's anchor organizations in specific neighborhoods or nonprofits, other folks that are doing similar work, because we are so much stronger when we collaborate instead of duplicating services. And so really getting out there and hearing from folks what it is that they need and want and being able to figure out ways to incorporate that into our programming and some of the things that we offer.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned that because I was about to ask you, how will you make sure that you accomplish that goal and serve Milwaukeeans, especially since, of course, we're made up of many different communities and each neighborhood has its own values and needs. So, yeah, how, I guess, will you connect with these community members?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about is providing a seat at the table, right? So instead of saying at this community center, we're going to offer X, Y, and Z, making sure that we are involving members of that community in the decision making so that we know that we're offering what people actually want to participate in. Same thing with engaging our teens in wondering what programming do you want to see in our late night programs at our twilight centers. So not assuming that we know, but actually engaging community members and other stakeholders in some of that decision making. And a lot of that is based on relationship building. So where I may not have connections or a previous established relationship, contacting some folks and setting up meetings and really trying to engage in an authentic way so that we truly are capturing the needs and desires of the community that we serve and many of us live. I think that's a huge piece of our puzzle.
So I know that Milwaukee Rec has been working on renovating its 52 playfields and building a new community center. But what's an ongoing or upcoming project you're excited to work on?
Yeah, those are both at the top of the list, truly. We're all excited for the 2027 opening of the Milwaukee Recreation Community Center on 76th and Silver Spring, our first standalone community center with a pool. We have Beulah Brinton in Bayview, but really excited for all the opportunities that this will provide. I think rather than a specific project, what I'm excited about is figuring out ways that we can continue to be nimble and flexible and adjust to meet the ongoing changing needs of our community and remaining community-centered, being collaborative in our approach, and then creating efficiency wherever we can.
Well, Annie, before I let you go, are there any classes or events you recommend people check out this winter, or maybe it's something you've signed up for before?
Sure, yeah. Well, we have the Daddy-Daughter Dance that is coming at the end of February, and I know that it is filling up fast. That's at the Baird Center. I always love our special events. So we just had Winter Wonderwoods that finished in early December, but it's definitely something to check out next year. Put it on your winter bucket list for Hawthorne Glen, and just our ongoing guide classes as well. So we've got some special events coming up in our Twilight Centers. So lots of things coming in the late winter, early spring. So definitely keep an eye out on the website and our recreation guides.
Well, Annie, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me. We just appreciate the support and look forward to connecting sometime soon.
Emily Winter is one of the creators of One-Liner Madness. Annie Kubis is Milwaukee Recreation's new senior director. X-Ray Arcade. She's the department's 12th director, and it's a 115-year history in the competition. Milwaukee Recreation is a financial supporter of WUWM.
How does this show work? What is the setup?
Are you looking for a laugh this weekend?
So One-Liner Madness, I started it with a friend back when I lived in New York in 2016, and we decided to see if it would be possible to wrangle 64 comedians, get them all in the same room, and get them in a March Madness style single elimination short joke tournament. And we couldn't believe that we were able to pull it off, because comedians are known to be a bit irresponsible, don't listen to rules, but we did it. And so I decided to start taking it all over the country, and now we are setting up for our first ever show in Milwaukee. So it's a very fast-paced, you'll hear 126 jokes in 100 minutes, a very fast-paced, rapid-fire single elimination joke tournament. And audience applause determines who advances, so it really depends on what everybody there likes.
So what would we consider a one-liner in this context?
Sure. So we do let comedians have up to 3 sentences so that they can do a proper setup and punchline. If they start just telling a story, going down a long path, we blow the whistle and they are eliminated. So for one of our shows, we had a comedian who was 14 years old. This was in San Diego last year, and he had a joke that I loved, and it was, well, I still live with my parents, like all the other comedians on this show. And he was competing against a bunch of adults, and that like really everyone loved it, and he advanced on that. So that was actually a true one-liner, but they do have up to 3 sentences.
Very nice. This is really a question for both of you, but Emily, I'm thinking you might be the expert here. What is the trick to a really good one-liner?
Oh, okay. So I'm actually really excited to hear what Dana has to say about this. But for me, what I've noticed with these shows, and you know what, I've hosted this show over 50 times around the country, but I have never competed in my own show. And my husband, who's a comedian, is always like, you don't know how scary and horrifying it is. But for me, what I always like and what I think delights a crowd is an element of surprise. So if you can twist a joke, like a basic joke, and make it somehow surprising. For example, there's this comedian who is in North Carolina. His name's Jordan Scott Huggins, and he had a joke that was, I just flew in from Chernobyl, and boy, are my arms legs. And I love that joke. It just catches the whole audience by surprise. So yeah, Dana, what do you think?
What makes a good one-liner? Beats me is the thing, because I'm not normally that type of comic, but that's why it's exciting for 64 different comics to get into this competition. I love something that's going to make me stretch myself and write differently than I normally do. It's a fantastic exercise, and so I'm quite literally in the process of it.
I was going to say, this seems very different from like your average stand-up set. How do you prepare for something like this?
I think the first thing that I'm doing is I am taking stock of, everything in my repertoire, everything I do on a show normally, and seeing if there are instances jokes I already have that fit into that format, or anything I could really cut the fat and fit into that format. So I'm going to start with what I have, but otherwise, nothing's off limits. Otherwise, I'm going to have to grab from, topical stuff just to make sure I have enough material.
I was going to say, have you watched the tapes? Are you strategizing, learning from other comedians?
Yes, but that's something you can only do so much of. I feel like you can do too much, and then, like Emily's husband Chris was saying, like it freaks you out.
It's so funny. The woman who won Chicago last year, she participated 2 years in a row, and she even reused one of her jokes. And it did not do well the first year. So I'm not sure why she reused it the second year, but you could tell that she had so much more confidence in her delivery the second year. And she had clearly grown so much as a comedian. And so when she was able to do her joke with confidence and put her whole self behind it, the audience ate it up. And then she went on to win the whole thing. That was Sonal Agarwal. But yeah, so I just, it's a lot to do with your personal style and owning whatever that style is.
So looking at this specific show, it's 64 different comedians. Are these mostly folks who are local to Wisconsin, like yourselves?
Yes, absolutely. So I just moved to Wisconsin from Los Angeles, so I don't know too many Wisconsin comedians. I was lucky enough to meet Dana and get to see her comedy on a show recently. There's 5 comedians that I know, and I said, who do you guys like? And so I got recommendations from other comedians. So I just want to book based on who everyone else loves. That's what I do when I don't know all of the comics. But yeah, I think there's a couple people coming in from Illinois, but generally it's Wisconsin and especially Milwaukee. Dana, you know most of the people on the list, right?
I would say, and it's so exciting to see, I've got some of my friends on this show that I've known for 10 years and done comedy with, and then there are those handful that I am not familiar with at all. And there's a wide variety. You've got Rory Roosh, who has been named Madison's funniest comic in the past, so he's formidable. But you've got Chris Schmidt from Milwaukee, who he's like a one-liner comic in a way already, so he's going to be locked and loaded. So it's just coming at you from all sides.
This is maybe a weird question, but as you think of, top one-liners that you've ever heard, what comes to mind?
This is so hard because every single show I say, I'm going to remember all of my favorite jokes, and then I immediately forget them because you're hearing so many jokes. So honestly, if you're going to this show, A, you're welcome to bring a noisemaker because screaming and clapping is hard on your voice after a while. But 2, write down some key words. If you're trying to remember jokes, write them down because I'm completely on purpose evading this question. But it's so crazy how they fly right out of your head. When I host the show, I explain the show and I give some examples of my own jokes. And so right now I'm on one, so I can tell you one of mine that I like if you want that.
Sure, yeah.
I recently won a boat on The Price is Right, which is true. I have depression, so I named it the SSRI.
Good.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's hard being on the radio and nobody's laughing.
I liked it.
Thanks. That's top of my list right now. But as far as greatest one-liners of all time, it's probably going to be a Mitch Hedberg joke for me, but I'm struggling to select. Dana, do you have any?
Well, I was thinking Mitch Hedberg as well, but when I say it, I'm not going to quote it exactly because I notoriously get quotes wrong, but it's just the classic of an escalator can't break down, it can just temporarily become stairs.
Yeah.
Yes. That's wonderful.
Well, Dana, Emily, thank you both so much for joining us here on Lake Effect, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting us be here.
Emily Winter is one of the creators of One-Liner Madness, which will be making its Milwaukee debut this Saturday at X-Ray Arcade. Dana Ehrman is a local comedian who will be featured in the competition. And that's Lake Effect for today. I'm Excret Nunez. Audrey Nowakowski, Joy Powers, and Sam Woods join me in producing Lake Effect each week, with help from Graham Thomas. Becky Mortensen is our executive producer, and Emily Files helps edit the show. We also heard from Jimmy Gutierrez, Mayan Silver, Susan Bentz, Catherine Kokel, and Maria Peralta Ariano from the WUWM news team this week. Jason Reavy is our studio engineer, Valeria Navarro Villegas is our digital operations manager, and Trapper Shep wrote our theme music. If you missed any of Lake Effect this week, you can find all of our conversations at wuwm.com. And of course, if you like to take the show on the go, you can download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Join us again on Monday at noon for a conversation with the DNR about their recent study on food waste in Wisconsin. Thanks so much for joining us today on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.